Okay, ladies, I'm back. This is Still Looking Good, the channel that reviews wigs for the mature woman. I know the screen is kind of low because I'm trying to get you to see what I'm working on. What I'm going to do now that I have the wefts sewn together, and I showed you these last week, they're sewn together now, doubled up so that I can put them on the wig. And I did them in white thread because I wanted you guys to see what it actually looked like. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the cap off of here. And I'm going to start sewing on these lines. This is the first one. And so what my goal is here is to make sure that I'm sewing, that my needle is going in this part, the white part, and into the cap. So it's going to go in, 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 in. And you need to watch it as you're sewing it to make sure that this needle is going where you want it to go. Now I'm going to pin some of these on here, just enough so that they'll stay on the line. That way you don't have to worry about them slipping. So I'm just sticking some pins in so that they will stay on the line, okay? Okay, so here's what it looks like, just the first row on here. Just the first rows on here. So I'm going to put the rest of them on here now, but I'm going to keep putting it on here so that I can kind of keep track of what it's going to look like, the shape, you know. I'm going to show you a little bit more of this because these doubled wefts make this a very tedious process because of the fact that the wefts are doubled and you've got this third piece of fabric underneath. That's three things that you're sewing together basically, and it makes it thick. And making it thick sometimes can make it bulky as you're sewing. And when you're sewing with these pins that I showed you before, as your presser foot approaches the pins, stop your machine and slide them out so that your machine doesn't run over them. Sometimes it's okay for the sewing machine to go over the pins because sometimes the needle will miss the pin and just keep going. And when I'm sewing clothes, I usually don't take my pins out. I just let the sewing machine go over them because it usually skips them. But there is the off chance that the needle will hit that pin and break. So since this is such a bulky process, I think it makes more sense for you to take these pins out as the presser foot approaches. Another thing I want to share with you is right now I am on weft number 6. Weft number 6. And the more hair you get on this cap, the thicker this thing becomes, the more unwieldy it becomes. So what I'm finding is that the more hair I put on here, the harder this is to manipulate. So I took the arm off of this sewing machine, and if you have a machine that has an arm, you might want to take it off to do this. And I'm also making sure that I keep this cap turned inside out because it keeps wanting to concave. I mean, it keeps wanting to curve up, and I need to concave it in order to keep the stitching correct. So I'm having to turn this in like this. It keeps wanting to go out like this, like the shape of your head, and I'm trying to turn it in so that I can keep it flat and get these wefts on here because this is a lot of hair. And the more you do this, as you can see, the more hair you're going to put on here, the more bulky this process is going to become. So I'm constantly finding myself turning this in so that I can flatten it out and keep it flattened out so that none of the hair that's already been sewn gets caught in here, and so that the inside of the cap doesn't get caught in here. So you have to continually maneuver this and keep this weft on that silver line that you created. That's why the lines on the cap are so important, because you want to make sure that you're doing everything that you can to keep everything aligned, but you also do not want to get any of the previous wefts caught up in the current one that you're sewing. We're on weft number 8. We're on number 7, I think, because we've got 2 more. With all this hair, we've got 2 more. This is like, it's getting bulkier by the minute. So I'm having to sew a lot slower to keep these things in line without getting the hair underneath stuck in here. It's not an easy process. I'm really taking my time and making sure that these wefts are right against this line, hook or crook, right? And I just keep stopping and readjusting and stopping and readjusting so that I can make sure that this hair stays on in line. If you don't double the wefts, it may be easier to get this done. It may not seem as bulky, but this process, like I said, usually when I watched people do this online, you didn't see them do this part. They never went to the top of this wig and showed you how bulky this was and how difficult this is to really get this right. And I know why now. They don't want you to see this part. Now, it's not been the easiest thing to maneuver. So if you have never sewn on a sewing machine, I would suggest you just take basic sewing machine classes first, not wig making classes, but sewing machine classes, so that you can understand not only how to use the sewing machine, but to get an opportunity to try different things, like make a coat. That's what you should do first. If you're going to tackle a wig, make a coat. When you get around the sleeves and the lapels for the buttons, you're going to find that bulk problem when you're making a coat. And a dress, like a 50s dress, like the ones that have the big, because there's so much material, that's also a bulky project. So I would suggest that you get to learn some of those things first, because I made a 50s dress a couple of years ago, real bulky project, because it was lined. It was a lined dress, and it had that crinoline underneath it. And a coat that I made that was a nice, it was like a cashmere material. That was a bulky project. And that's kind of why I'm handling this. But if I didn't know anything about sewing, this would be driving me crazy right now, just to let you know. Okay, here we are with one more weft left to put on. So here is the wig, lots of hair, lots of hair. One more weft to put on, and the wefts that go across the top, and then the frontal. So this is where we are. One other thing. When you get to the top, especially if you have a closure and you need to kind of go around in a semicircle, one of the things that I would suggest that you do is, as you're sewing, when the needle goes into the thread, into the material, and you're getting close to that circle, make sure the needle is in the material. Then you can stop and lift up the presser foot with the needle still in the material so you can pivot. That'll be a way for you to keep the hair and the cap together and still be able to make a turn. Okay, now I'm at the top. And as you can see on this side, it looks pretty good. The hair is not matching up like I wanted it to, as you can see. And of course the white thread doesn't help, but again, I did that to help you guys see. The hair on this level should have been over this to cover it up. And maybe there should have been another weft under here to make this work. This side is horrible. If you can see what I ended up doing, what ended up happening is that my wefts did not match up. It didn't, so they're graduated, so they didn't even match up. So they should have matched up so that they would all be over each other. And that's not what happened. I think the one that I had on here that was longer, that I cut, was probably supposed to be on a different level. So it might be a good idea to mark your pieces if you're going to sew them in advance, and cut them in advance to mark your pieces. And it might even be a better idea to not even cut them in advance, although it's going to be a lot more hair to work with if you don't cut them in advance, because if you don't cut them in advance, you're going to have even more bulk to deal with than this. Now I'm going to start sewing the pieces across the top. These little pieces are going to go across the top so that they can meet up with the frontal, the closure. So I'm going to sew these 3 pieces on here and cut the edges off. And then I'm going to probably hand sew the frontal on, because, the closure. Because again, since it's not a frontal, it's not as conducive to stitching it as I thought it was going to be. I'm so tired, I'm not even gonna put this mic on right. It is 11 o'clock at night. I have been doing this since 7:38, I think. So this, if anybody tells you that you can make a wig on a machine in 40 minutes, do not believe it. It's a lie, okay? It's a lie. Like I said, I've been sewing for years, and this was a hot mess. This was bulky. This was, it was time consuming. Making sure everything matched up took up some of my time too. And now I still have to sew the closure on. This was a bear. And if you take a class, now I know that Weave College offers some wig sewing classes. I bet you a dime to a donut they don't make a wig in 40 minutes. And I'm sure that they've got some other techniques that they use to make the front work out right. Like I had to actually fake mine and put more hair around it. But I mean, all in all, I think it looks decent. But, and you know, once I style it, I'm sure it'll look fine. But the point is that it's a lot of work. And so my hat's off to people who actually do this on the sewing machine for people on a regular basis. And that's probably why they charge so much money, because this is a bear. It's not easy to do. Maybe if it was a short hair wig, and Lord, if it was longer than this, and this is only 14 inches. If it was longer than this, I just can't even imagine it. Okay, ladies, here I am back with the finished wig. I've curled it a little bit. I made myself a left side part. I plucked a little bit of the part out. You can see I plucked a little bit of the part out, and I put some powder in the part, and also plucked the front so that it looks a little bit more realistic. So this is the result of the wig that I made. Again, there's a lot that you cannot see on this wig in terms of mistakes that I made. There's actually a piece up here that's missing that I've got to add back. And of course, I still have the white thread, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the wig and take just a black magic marker and mark over the black thread so it doesn't show if I decide that I'm going to wear this wig. So this was a very interesting experience, as I mentioned to you before, and I wanted to share it with you because I wanted you to see from beginning to end what this process is really like and how much time it takes, and that even a trained seamstress like me can screw it up the first time. Because again, a lot of the things that I had to kind of work around and fix were because I knew certain things being a seamstress. So I hope this was helpful. It was definitely helpful for me. Whether I'm going to do it or not, I don't know. I think I may get a 13x4 frontal and try it again. Not anytime soon, but I mean, this wig still, it's cute. It turned out kind of cute. It's not bad, you know, it's not perfect, but it's not bad. It's very thick, and again, I probably will change the amount of wefts that I put in terms of the doubling of the wefts. I may not double them all the way up the next time, and maybe put them closer together in terms of the spacing, but it's still a really, really cute wig, and I feel really good that I was able to at least make one for the first time. So again, if you guys have not subscribed to my channel, please do so, because I want to continue to bring things like this to you. Please tell your friends and family, your mother, your grandmother, your aunties, and any other mature woman who is interested in learning more about wigs, how to wear them, and makeup in general for older women. So as I always say, if you're going to show love to anyone today, please show it to the Creator. I'm still looking good, and of course, so are you. See you next time.